It is Friday, October 6th, 2023. This is another edition of Football Today. You know this guy, Bobby Skinner from Talking Giants. I'm Chris Rose. Producer Mikey along for the ride as well. And before we get going and get you all set up for your Week 5 contest over the weekend, did you move into a closet or something? Where are you?
Oh, this is my old photos of ballerinas and stuff. No, I'm my girlfriend's brother is getting married, so we're out of the country. So we're at her parents' house. Just had some deer and eggs for lunch. So I'm living the life. It's a good weekend. Watch some late Thursday night football this morning. I'm excited to talk about it all.
So wait, are you allowed to tell us where you are?
Yeah, I'm in Garavia, Spain. So if there's any big fans out here, come say hello.
Wait a second. You are in Spain right now? How is it that you're in Spain and this is the best your connection has looked so far?
Dang, that hurts. I'm actually looking to I'm going to start upgrading my internet. I think the guy lied to me when he said I don't need the fastest one. I'm going to need the fastest one. So, that's good to know because I was worried that it would look horrible.
No, you look great. God, let's get through this half hour so we can enjoy talking football, and then let you get on your merry way so you can have more deer and eggs or whatever.
I'm excited for it.
You just ate. Let's start off with the biggest game of the weekend. It will happen actually on Sunday Night Football out by the Bay, Niners and Cowboys. Scale of 1 to 10, Bobby Skinner. How big a game is this for Dak Prescott?
So I'm going to say 6 because I think that's as important as a game can be for a regular season game for a team that's more than likely going to make the playoffs anyways. So it's like it's big, but it's only regular season big. I mean, Dak, this has been the team that's, taken them out 2 years in a row in the playoffs. And like the 49ers have the talent advantage overall, but it's not to say like, oh, there's this big, difference between the two. And guess where the Cowboys should be able to say, hey, we have the advantage. Quarterback, the most important position in football. And that's why I think it lays on Dak more than it does anybody else.
Boy, 6. Interesting way you phrased it because you can't give too much credence into a regular season game when you feel like they're going to be the team that at least makes it as a wild card. It doesn't win the NFC East.
Yeah, they're basically like a lock as the number 1 wild card for me.
You know what, though? I'm going to maybe say a little bit more. I would say 7 or 7.5 because it's this. It's not just that the Niners knocked out the Cowboys each of the last 2 years. It's the way they've done it. And let's remember that Dak, even though he had his issues last year with the turnover bug, right? He was tied for the league lead in interceptions, even though he missed 5 games because of injury. They always put points on the board when he's under center. Like each of the last 2 or 3 years when he has played, the Cowboys averaged 30 points per game. Do you know what they averaged in their 2 playoff losses to San Francisco?
13 points or something like that.
14.5. So barely 2 touchdowns per game. That's a real problem. And for Dak, he's had 3 interceptions combined in those 2 losses. And people look at him as to why they can't be better and, get that drive when they need to. And the way the game ended 2 years ago on a quarterback draw, and everybody looked like a meathead on the sidelines after that. So the other thing is that I think there's people that still feel like Dak is a franchise quarterback, but he's not going to be the guy you're willing to pay $55 million to a year when his contract is up in a couple of seasons. Do you see it that way?
Yeah, I think he's like top of the middle tier, and it's because of these types of games with Dak, right? Like, I think people put too much on it, like, the whole quarterbacks aren't a win stat. I think they're partially a win stat, but not fully. But I think Dak more than anyone deserves the pressure when these big moments, because we've seen him be like, we know he's a good quarterback, right? But it's in these big moments where we just have not seen him perform consistently. And the 49ers games the last couple of years have been a product of that. He basically had no success throwing to anyone outside of CeeDee Lamb in that game last year. And I mean, Brock Purdy outplayed him. And again, like I do think the 49ers have the talent advantage, but the Cowboys should be able to match up with anybody. And when they're supposed to have the quarterback advantage, they should win those games.
And if Dallas does not win these games, it's going to fall on the shoulders of 2 people. Mike McCarthy, who's not only the head coach, but also the new play caller. And let's remember, last year, Dallas, even though it had problems against the Niners, number 1 team in the red zone. This year, there's only 2 teams that are worse, the Saints and the Texans. So that's going to fall on Mike McCarthy, and it's going to fall on Dak Prescott. And if Dak Prescott doesn't start stacking wins in impressive fashion against upper echelon teams, and that includes occasionally a monumental regular season contest, then people are going to say, yeah, Dak's good, but, and you never want to be that guy, Bobby.
Well, and if the Eagles win and the Cowboys lose, they're now 2 games back in the division, heading into a Monday Night Football game with the Chargers next week. That I don't think anyone would be surprised they like lost that and be at 3-3, and maybe even like they might set themselves up to play if they're the second wild card team, and if they lose twice to the Eagles and end up 10-7 or 11-6, and somehow another team gets in there. Like they're setting themselves up to play the Cowboys or the Niners or the Eagles in the playoffs, which I don't think we're picking the Cowboys against either of those teams.
Okay. I think there's a question I want to ask you, but in case the Niners win on Sunday night, I think I want to save it for Monday, which means that the Niners won't win and I'll lose my question. But just put that in your back pocket so that when by the way, are you going to be back in the States on Monday or still vacationing?
Still here.
Wow.
So we'll be ready to go. Be the most prep I do. I have a 5-hour advantage.
Okay, well, you know what, though? Sunday morning gets started over in that part of the world very early for us, but not early for you guys because we've got another London game. We got the Jags and the Bills. Are you more impressed with the turnaround by Josh Allen after that week 1 disaster against the Jets, or are you left wondering why Jacksonville isn't better than 2-2 through 4 games?
Well, I am very happy for Allen to turn it around because I thought that this would be the team that they are this year, and then that we talked about that first game where we called it both immature, and they've bounced back from that. But I'm more interested in the Jags, right? They have wins against the Colts and the Falcons, and losses to the Chiefs and Texans. Like what is happening all around that team, right? Like they should kind of be able to hang with Buffalo, and I always pick the Jags to cover it when they're in London. It's a rule, even though I really like the Bills in this matchup. But I think Trevor Lawrence has been really solid for them, right? Their run game has been bad. I think the rest of the team has kind of let Lawrence down a little bit, right? Like he has only Mahomes and Tannehill are the guys who have higher drop rates as quarterbacks. And then Ridley. Like here's my thing is Calvin Ridley, who's obviously this uber talented wide receiver. There was issues at Atlanta, and the first week he comes out and balls out. Since then, Rose, he's got 7 catches for 110 yards, and he's had 4 drops, which again was an issue with him. In Atlanta, there was other issues, questions of effort and stuff. Like now, the Bills lost Tre'Davious White, so they lost their best corner. Mm-hmm. This is a game where Lawrence and them should be able to like compete, despite the great defense that the Bills do have.
I am curious what the hell's going on with Jacksonville, right? They've got far and away the best quarterback of that 2021 draft. And actually, Trevor Lawrence has played okay this year.
He's been good. He's been the best deep ball thrower in the NFL. And I really do think the receivers have let him down. It's not even just drops. They've been like high leverage moment drops too.
Okay. But I can explain losing to the Super Bowl champs by a few points. I get that. That happens. But to be non-competitive against the Houston Texans, they lost by 20 points. 20 points they lost by. That cannot happen. Here's the other thing. This is one of as you look at Jacksonville's schedule, I mean, it is a piece of cake, right? You've got the rest of the AFC South that you have to play the entire year. You play the NFC South. And when everybody's beating their chest about Baker Mayfield leading the charge in Tampa, I'm like, that's where we are these days. Like that's the prize in the NFC South, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they can run through those divisions. You don't get that many opportunities to put your stamp on a regular season. They missed one against Kansas City. They've now got one against Buffalo. As Cincinnati was starting to climb the ladder, who did they beat every year? The Kansas City Chiefs. And that's all we talked about when they got to the playoffs. Hey, you know what? We know the Bengals are on the road in big bad Kansas City, but look who hasn't beaten the Bengals, Patrick Mahomes. So at some point, you've got to start winning these big games because there aren't that many elite teams in the NFL. Let's be fair about it, right?
Yeah, and we've talked about it on here is my worry with Lawrence is how is he going to be under pressure, right? Because if you look at the splits of him versus pressure and cleanups, that's where all like his bad stuff happens. And the Bills are obviously going to do that without having like the mishaps that other teams may have on defense in the secondary. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this Jags team right now. Like I think there was a little bit of overhype on them this last year because of that playoff win, but you forget they they were a collapse away from having Trevor Lawrence having a 4 interception game with all those, pick sixes. That I think, how many pick sixes were in that playoff game?
God almighty.
It's just, and like, you think about them, like Houston plays Arizona, they can win that game and be 3-2, and then one of Indy or Tennessee could be 3-2, and if the Jags lose this game, which even if they lost this game, like the Bills are always a better team than them. They're back in the division. They've got, they won the division last year, so they're playing the first place schedule. Like, it is harder for them versus other teams, and like, they might be 9-8 again, which is what they were last year. So I think you just need more consistency out of Jacksonville, which you really haven't seen. But their run game hasn't been good defensively. Like, where's the pass rush going to come from outside of Josh Allen? Like, it hasn't been great in year 2 so far.
I do want to throw some flowers in the direction of Josh Allen real quickly, since we toasted him on that Monday night. Does lead the NFL, completing 75% of his passes. That is an enormous number. He's tied for first in total touchdowns. Most importantly, he has thrown only 1 interception since that disaster opening night. And since losing in week 1, the Bills have outscored their opponents 123-33. So those are all good things for the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. All right, week 5 did get started. Thursday night football. We thought it was going to be unwatchable. It was quite the opposite. I actually enjoyed watching the Chicago Bears snap their franchise record 14-game slide. They ended up with a 40-20 win against the Washington Commanders. Justin Fields with another impressive stat line. How much better should Chicago fans feel about Fields right now?
They should feel better than they did the beginning of the season, obviously, because it was like horrible, horrible, horrible. But I don't come away from this game being like, oh, Fields is turning around. I come from this game and being like, well, the one really good move by their GM was taking DJ Moore instead of an extra first round pick, which
right
in that moment, we've seen first overall pick trades. What I thought made that one so good was DJ Moore when he had 10 catches, 230 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And Fields missed him on another touchdown on a third down. Like, I've watched him a lot, and I've always thought like he is the most underrated wide receiver one in the NFL for a long time. He's put up over 1,100 yards 3 of the last 4 seasons. Had attacks on all 3 levels of the field. Like, that dude is legit. And now he's got over 500. He's had 300-yard games in 5 games for the Bears, despite all of their issues. Like, I come away from that game being, you obviously feel better about Fields because he's always been this talented, though. So Fields is always going to have good games because of that talent. But when I watch this game, every throw, and not just watching highlights, there's still issues with Fields. Like, there was just as many misses as there were great plays in this game.
Well, that's evidenced by the statistics. Even if you didn't watch the game, he was 15 of 29. That's barely 50% completion rate. Now, there were times where Washington's defensive front got in his face, and he had to do everything he could and use all that athleticism to get away. Plus, how many high snaps were there? I mean, Jesus, if I'm going to hear Kirk Herbstreit say one more time that's where his baseball background comes in. Stop snapping the ball high. I'm a baseball guy too, but Jesus, I've had enough of that. I've had enough of that line. For me, it's how much progress is he showing? And I have to be honest with you. When I watched Justin Fields play for Chicago, I have seen progress in the last 2 weeks. I've definitely seen progress. But I keep thinking, which NFL team is going to reap the rewards for that progress? Because it sure as hell doesn't feel like it's going to be Chicago, right? If they have 2 picks that are in the top 6, let's say, one of them's going to a quarterback, isn't it? Or unless they don't get a shot at Caleb Williams, do you think they just stick with him?
I think you have to pick up it's the option all season for him. I think the progress has been like he didn't have these disaster plays in this last game, right? Like he didn't take these bad sacks and he didn't have the backbreaking interception like he did last week, although Komet said it was a miscommunication, so I won't put that. And Fields had a really good game versus Denver. I think they are in a quarter. They're going to be quarterback, and this might be the highest moment of the season for Chicago, unfortunately.
Wow. I don't know, man. They were kicking the shit out of Denver. That was some poor, mismanaged coaching on their part last week. They're this close, to being 2-3.
Yeah, but they had a collapse. I'm not a fan of Fields, but I'm less of a fan of the Chicago's coaching staff. Do coaching staffs get better as the season go along,
No.
or do their issues show up more as the season goes along? I think it's the latter. And I just think there's going to be issues kind of all throughout the year with them. And again, like as good as the game as this was for Fields, and I hate to nitpick, right? But he missed Mooney for 2 big plays.
Totally.
He missed Herbert on that 3rd down, where he was scrambling wide open. Missed DJ Moore for another touchdown on 3rd and 5. And some of the Moore plays were just like excellent plays. Now the throw on that little sluggo route, the second Moore touchdown was great. But Fields is like, the question with Fields has never been talent. It's about being consistent and putting together, like just seeing the field better and not getting your team, in these 3rd and longs. And luckily for them last night, they had these big plays on 3rd downs, but you're not going to live off 3rd down every week. And that's where they lived off this game.
I'll leave you with 2 things here on the Bears. Fields has now had consecutive 4 touchdown passing games when not having any in his first 28 career starts. So that's something that he can try and build off of. They only have 1 team left on their schedule that currently has a winning record. Now, they play them twice. It's the Detroit Lions. It doesn't mean that the Chargers or the Vikings. There's a lot of 2-2s on there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of teams that could be winning teams when they face them, whether it's Chargers, Vikings, Packers, Browns. Some of those teams could have winning records when they play them. The other thing is, how soon before we say that DJ Moore is the greatest receiver in Bears history? Because it is not a lengthy list.
Ooh, we did this for the Ravens. Trying to think of Bears receivers that I really liked. Who was so they had Muhsin Muhammad they got from Carolina. Who was the receiver they had before that? And he ended up going to Miami.
So they've had a couple of
Chris
guys
Chambers. I really like Chris Chambers.
Yeah, but I thought Chambers was better in Miami than Chicago. Didn't they have Earl Bennett was like a decent receiver? This is so sad, by the way. Like, none of the guys during their 80s run were allowed to be any good. They just, in part because the quarterback play has been so dismal in the history of this franchise. It really is incredible how they've had very little productivity. I think they've had like 2 Pro Bowlers in the history of the franchise. I want to say it's like Mitchell Trubisky and Jim McMahon are the only quarterbacks that have ever made the Pro Bowl as a Chicago Bear, something ridiculous like that.
Chris Chambers never played for the Bears. I don't know why.
That's okay. Yeah, that sounded a little.
I'm thinking of somebody else then.
But like Willie Gault and Dennis McKinnon on their Super Bowl team were never putting up gaudy stats because they just ran the football basically.
So do you have like who's the Bears' all-time leading receiver?
I don't have it in yardage wise.
I'm going to pull it up. I'll do trivia with you then.
I will say this though. I'll guarantee you it's fewer than 6,500 yards.
That is true.
I'm going to guess it's like 57-48.
Wow. So this guy's position is left end, but somehow he's their second leading receiver.
Okay. Yes. One of those guys.
Harlan Hill, but that's 1954.
Mm-hmm.
You got Johnny Morris, who's listed as flanker, which I don't know if that means tight end or slot receiver. Probably tight end back in that day. So let's just go anytime after 1967. Who is their leading receiver? Yeah, he is there. He is going to be their best receiver of all time. Marty Booker was who I was thinking of that went to the Dolphins later.
Marty Booker. That's exactly who. Is Booker the number 1 guy, by the way?
No, you're not going to believe this because he's only there for 5 years.
Who was it?
Alshon Jeffrey.
Alshon.
Alshon Jeffrey.
What's the number, by the way? What's the yardage number? I said 57-48 or something.
For the Johnny Morris guy, who I don't know anything about, he had 5,059. Alshon Morris had 4,500 yards. Walter Payton, Mike Ditka, Curtis Conway, 90s guy, okay. Matt Forte, and then my guy Marty Booker is number 8.
That's amazing. All right, let's move on. I can't.
Brandon Marshall was good too. He didn't play there very long.
Yes, he was. Very good play. I can't do any more Bears wide receiver trivia. I'm making myself sick.
What is up, baseball fans who are listening to football? You may not even like baseball, but they put it in here, and it's baseball playoffs. I'm not a big baseball fan, but baseball playoffs I am a fan of. The playoffs are here, and it's time to get in on the action. We've teamed up with DraftKings, and they are bringing all new customers an offer that you can take advantage of right now. So maybe you could be a new baseball fan and a new customer. New customers who bet $5 will get $200 in bonus bets instantly. So download the DraftKings app now and use my promo code Football Today, all one word, Football Today. That's right. New customers who bet just $5 on any wager will receive $200 in bonus bets instantly. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings parlays. Combine multiple bets together for a shot at an even bigger payout. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. That's beautiful. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use promo code Football Today. Bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code Football Today only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
Jets visit Denver, and let's remember, Sean Payton blasted Nathaniel Hackett for the shit job he did with the Broncos last year. Hackett is now the OC with the Jets. Do you think that Robert Saleh has played that up this week behind closed doors? And if so, does it have any impact on Sunday's game?
It 100% has been played up by Saleh. But here's the thing: is Hackett is kind of like a goofy dude, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sure it bothers him, but I think the pressure is so much more on Sean Payton to come out and say that stuff. And then it'd be one thing if they lost to an Aaron Rodgers Jets. If you lose to a Zach Wilson Jets and fall to 1-4, like the heat is on, right? And I'm sure it already is on a little bit after that 70-point outing for Miami. But I feel like there's so much more pressure on Payton than anybody, because even if Hackett comes out and wins or loses, no one's opinion changes of Nathaniel Hackett, or no one's heat isn't coming off of or getting better for Hackett. To me, it's really all about Sean Payton.
It is. I think, first of all, that Jets defense is going to be fired up. I think it's going to be fired up, not necessarily for Nathaniel Hackett, but I bet you Saleh is going to be a shit stirrer this week.
Absolutely.
I think for sure behind the scenes, he's probably like testing their manhood and saying, do you want people to think that you're an elite defense? Like, if you're an elite defense, get us back to 500 by the middle of October so that Aaron Rodgers, who's doing all this weird stuff with his Achilles, that he can come back and be, the first guy to play the same season that he blows out. Like, let's be that team. So that wouldn't surprise me if that sort of stuff happens.
We're still early enough to where, and you have that game versus the Chiefs where you can still rally the troops in that Jets locker room too, right? You'd be like, hey, I know we're 1-3, but we played 3 damn good teams and we just competed with the Super Bowl champs. Zach Wilson bought himself another week of not calling for people to bench him. So if there's any week that Robert Saleh is trying to rally the troops, it is this week, because it's a very winnable game. You have the bulletin board material, and you are trying, if you lose this game, you can, all the raw stuff kind of goes out the window.
By the way, Hackett did meet the media this week and was asked a bunch of questions about it. He said, listen, it's not that big a deal. It's the Jets against the Broncos. We're trying to beat the Broncos. It's all I look at it. The interesting thing was, did you get an apology from Sean Payton? His answer was no. And I think they followed up by saying, do you think you'll receive one? He's like, you're going to have to ask Sean Payton. So are you surprised that Payton didn't call and apologize?
No, because it's Sean Payton. And I feel like Sean Payton is somebody who has a very hard time apologizing and admitting they're wrong, which I can relate to a little bit. But yeah, I think Sean Payton, it probably has, even if he is sorry, has the hard time to call up and say, I'm sorry. Like, I think there's going to be a quick after the game, like, hey, sorry about that, real quick, walk away type of thing for Sean Payton. If he is sorry.
I don't think he's sorry. I think he digs himself as a head coach. He's been wonderful. He did an amazing job in his time in New Orleans. He got caught up in the whole TV persona thing where they push for you to say stuff that sometimes you don't believe, or
he was more than willing to, too.
Oh, yeah, he volunteered it. No problem whatsoever. And by the way, because we never really discussed it, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I think guys inside the business, I think the coaching profession minded it. But you know what? If you think that somebody did a shitty job, it's okay to say you did a shitty job. It just feels like it felt there's a real fine line you've got to dance between making it personal when it's somebody you don't know and saying what he said. I don't know. All right. Speaking of apologies, here we go. We got your Giants in the show, buddy. Offensive lineman Evan Neal. He has said, I'm sorry to Giants fans after calling them, quote, fair weather fans. The offensive tackle also went on to say about boos cascading upon them after Monday night's home defeat against Seattle. Why would a lion concern himself with the opinion of a sheep? The person that's commenting on my performance, what does he do? Flip hot dogs and hamburgers somewhere? Now, I saw some New York radio people go off on him.
The New York radio dream. Like when they saw that, I mean, they got hot and heated when they saw that. That's radio dream. We try to be a little bit opposite of radio with Talking Giants. And me personally, like, do those comments offend me, even though they are stupid? No. And the athletes complaining about booing to me is one of those things. Like, why do you people do this? Why do you complain about booing? It is the softest thing that fans can do. It's like it's the nicest mean thing you can do, and it's like it's not even really a personal attack. It's just like, hey, this is a bad product on the field right now. So I'll never understand that. Now, who was the Mets player who did the
Javi Baez?
I kind of love that.
I love that move.
I love that move. But it's just one, and Justin said this on our podcast, being like, hey, we don't have to be experts to know this is bad, right? And Evan, and guess what? I do offensive line stuff. You're still struggling with some of the same stuff. You are bad, and I think the most frustrating thing for him is he has made some slight improvements, but it's not enough. And that's what's worrisome about him, is that despite the improvements, it still looks bad. And yeah, are you getting beat snap in, snap out like you did last year? No, but you play a position where it's not about having some good plays and then bad plays. Offensive tackle is judged by not having the bad plays, right? That's what that position's about. You're not playing defensive end where you can have 4 good plays out of 10. And if you get a sack, 2 hits, and a tackle for a loss, you're good. This is offensive tackle. You're judged by not having the bad plays, and you were picked 7th overall. So, but at the same time, do whatever you got to do to try and get better and have whatever to drive you to be better. But the thing about Neal is he's not like an asshole or anything, right? And he's already self-driven and motivated. Like, so it was very weird hearing it come from him. Like, there's 53-man roster. There's probably 45 people you would have expected this answer out of more of, but he's frustrated and he's failing at the NFL level, which you have to remember. I think the thing that he needs to turn off Twitter. He admits that he's listening to Twitter and listening to and like checking his mentions and stuff. Get off Twitter, dude. Like, yeah, those people suck, right? The people that are tagging you and stuff like that. But that the difference between that and booing to me is like miles apart.
You have to just get off of social media during the season. It just doesn't help anybody. It doesn't. It's not going to help your mental health. I do think that Twitter and X is very productive for some things. I have to be on it because of the business I'm in, but those guys don't. Professional athletes do not. There's going to be very few people who will tag you and say, Evan, you are doing a great job. Now, let me get to the other aspect of his comment, which is that person that's commenting on my performance, what does he do? Flip hot dogs and hamburgers somewhere. And that's where people lost their shit.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I love people that flip my burgers and my hot dogs. Like, I want to commend them. Please keep doing a great job, because I don't want a big old loogie in my burger the next time I go there. With all that being said, what are the most menial jobs that you have had en route to your Talking Giants success?
I've had a lot of jobs. I was a college dropout, so no degree. I started doing this as a a hobby and ended up turning into something. So I worked as a janitor and maintenance at a department store. What I hated about that job though is they would put me on 8-hour shifts and I would finish all the work in like 3.5 hours. So I would literally go up in like the balcony and do push-ups and like sit in the bathroom for 20 minutes at a time on my phone trying to pass the time. I've dishwashed at a Chinese restaurant, which I enjoyed that. Like they were kind of like a family. I've done tree service, which is the hardest job in the world. I think it's like, dangerous. Especially in Florida, it's as hard as it gets. I did pools for a long time before this. That was probably the longest I worked that for like 7 years. Other jobs. I did security in college.
Ooh, did you ever have to bust anybody?
Oh yeah, that was fun because we would do it at like the little like, off campus like bars and clubs. And with my other buddy who works, and we were football players, so they put us on security and stuff. And this dude got mouthy and said something to one of the other guys, and we literally just got to like toss him around. It was very fun. Like I remember it vividly. And my buddy, we threw him into the kitchen. And my buddy said it was like a cartoon because the door kept on like popping open, and I'd have him like in a different move every single, because you're not punching him or anything, right? You're just basically like wrestling him. And the guy was actually a college wrestler too. So you're basically just like wrestling him to the ground. He keeps on getting out of it. But you just keep on putting him in different moves. And he said it was like a cartoon where every time the door was open, we had him in like a different position.
I love it. That's all good stuff. Unfortunately, this may come as a complete shock. I'm very thankful for my parents. They were extremely successful to the point where I didn't have to have a job in high school or through college or anything else. My first job, no joke, was as a ball boy for the Cleveland Browns.
I didn't know that. So I started this show, Simple Man Radio, back up as like an interview show, just kind of way to do some different content. Right. Start back up. I want to get you on because I feel like me and you have this arranged marriage of football today, and there's so much. So we got to do it like an hour-long talk. I agree. On Simple Man Radio.
Let's do it after the baseball playoffs. I'm all yours there.
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Bobby Pool Guy, or what'd you call yourself back in
the day? It was Bob's Pool Service.
Bob's Pool Service.
Yeah, I still got the email and everything.
Okay, I'm in. I could have talked about this all day long. Forget about Dak and the importance of a win against the Niners. I want to hear more about the time you were kicking ass as a security guy.
Well, and your baseball today guy, Trevor Plouffe, he comes from a pool service too, I think.
Absolutely. I can't get away from you pool guys. My pool guy's coming today. My pool guy, Austin. I'm going to have to tell him I'm just surrounded by all these wonderful pool people.
When I first started doing pools, it was probably the easiest job I did, but the best paying. So I loved it. So I got obsessed with it for like the first 2 years. Like anytime we'd be on vacation, I'd be like sitting on the balcony, like talking about the pool and stuff like that. And we ended up getting that job for all of our friends. So we would like all of our other friends would get annoyed when we were together. We're sitting there talking about like pH and alkalinity and what's the filter system like on that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I got to leave you with this because I got to get to my other show. But I think the pool people are trying to clean our filter too often. How often do you clean it? Like a major.
Do they charge you extra? Because you can never clean it too often.
Well, are you saying every month, every other month, every fourth month?
What type of filter is it? Is it a DE filter?
Come on, man. Stop.
Take a picture of it and send it to me. But if it's not a DE filter, once a week is pretty good.
Once a week?
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay.
Unless you're not using it at all.
Oh, we rarely use the pool.
Yeah, so in the winter you could get away with like once a month. In the summer you want to do once every other week at worst.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. I didn't know that. All right. You learn something new every day here on Football Today. This was a fun one. Always. We'll be back on Monday to break down the weekend that was. Maybe talk a little bit about the Monday night game as well. Producer Mikey, awesome job as always. Keep listening to the amazing content coming out of the Talking Giants dude with Bobby Skinner. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. I will see you from Spain on Monday. I am Chris Rose. Thanks for tuning in to Football Today.